Yeah. Coming through, signals clear. Aw, yeah. It's Geocache Talk. Woo!
It's time for Geocache Talk. Whether you are at work, in the car, or wherever you are, we hope you enjoy this show about the great sport of geocaching. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can be part of the adventure tonight in the chat room and participate with others as they watch the show. If you are listening later, please give it a like and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app so that you can get all of the weekly Geocache Talk goodness.
Well, good evening, and big thanks to Joshua, geocaching vlogger, for our new opening, and our featured patrons, Demon Hunter 2, Electric Water Boy, Aggie Jedi Master, Antaeus, Joshua, the geocaching vlogger, Nick Ashley. Well, what do you know? How about
All right.
One Kind Word, Butterfly Girl, Loon Trackers, the Aussie geocacher who's gonna have to have a new name. I don't know what we do with that. But speaking of the Aussie geocacher, who now is no longer an Aussie, is he still an Aussie? He's still an Aussie.
You're asking the guy that's called Memphis Mafia that lives in Colorado, so I'm okay with it.
But he'll be on in a couple weeks. The Yankee geocacher, we're gonna call him, I guess, and our new patrons, the Pizza Ninja, Geocache, DMN Rec, Widget Brittle, and Action Trinity. If you'd like to become a patron, click on the Become a Patron link on the front page of the Geocache Talk website, or head on over to patreon.com/Geocache Talk for more details. Patrons get the now famous Blackout coin.
And look how I get to show mine off now, thanks to Chad.
That's right. Ooh,
I
look
got
at
the
that.
full. Woo.
Ooh, got the whole thing there. How
But
about
I just
that?
realized, how do I hang this on the wall and also show it off every week?
I know.
So I'm not going to do that.
We'll get you an extra one or something. I don't know. You're allowed to have that. Other geocaching items during the year, well as bonus content, invites to special events like the book club.
Book club? What are you talking about?
The book club. Y'all reading books.
We do read books, actual real books.
You read real books. I love it. And other geocaching special events. We got one this Tuesday. We're going to do a special event for patrons. They can join, and we're going to play Whiplash. Yep. And it involves everybody. So that's the beauty of that particular game, is everybody gets to participate. So anybody who shows up, you are part of making the decisions about who wins and who loses. Jesse needs to lose this time, so just saying.
Nope.
Just talking to them.
Because Gary's going to stack it against me. Cheater.
No, the good
Cheater.
part is I don't do anything with it. It's just I start it up and it goes.
Nobody believes you. Nobody
it's a
believes
little-
you. You're stacking the deck.
No, I can't stack it because it just does its own thing. Which last time went a little dark. Last time, if you remember, it's a little. So anyway, only for patrons. That is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. And other special events. We've got things coming up soon. Support level start at as little as Bison Tube level. That's $3 a month. Well, let's jump right into show 239. We have a lot to discuss. Welcome back to the show, Nic Hubbard of Cachly. Welcome back.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Nick and I have been on a lot of shows over many years, haven't we? And Jesse too. But I remember
quite a few.
Cachly.
It's funny because when we refer to finding a geocache, we just talking about Cachly.
Right.
Good.
And it's not even, we're not really trying to pump you up as much as we do, but that's the truth for us. We just use Cachly. That's all we do. We forget sometimes that people do it other ways.
Yeah.
Good to hear.
Someone bring up the other app. I'm like, what is that? And I was like, oh, okay. But while we have a moment, I do want to tell you thank you for your gifts on Podcast of Hope.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
that was wonderful. Thank you for giving away coins during Podcast Hope. We had a really, really good experience doing that. So we appreciate that. Getting some echoing from you, Jesse, I think maybe, possibly. Just volume, your own volume down a little bit. All right. How funny, Adam. Cachly is the official app of Carrot Killer and Lady Black Cat. Well, there you go. Interesting. We got some interesting things to talk about. I left at the end, strangely enough, at the end, we'll talk about Cachly a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Get some updates on that. But I guess let's start with where do you want to start? You want to start with the Wherigo app? Because that was probably the most recent. Okay. Let's start with that, which was kind of a surprise. I mean, obviously wasn't surprised to you. You'd worked on it completely. But I remember Jesse saying, that looks a lot like Cachly. I wonder if Nic was involved. And tonight we'll get we'll kind of work some stuff out as far as tonight. And this would be a good point right now in that we're talking about Wherigo, the Wherigo app, which is that's a geocaching HQ app, but you helped work on it.
I helped develop the most recent version. So there was a previous version, and I still used a good deal of that code that had to do with parsing the Wherigo cartridges and things like that, and then built a lot on top of it. So,
gotcha.
Yeah.
So you were kind of contract. It was a contract job, kind of.
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Which it's wonderful. I mean, I love it.
Good.
I know.
Good.
Jesse, though, being the connoisseur of Wherigos,
love Wherigos.
Are you a fan of the app as well?
So here's the only problem, though. It works great. Okay. Half the reason why I liked Wherigos was because they were hard to use. That's why I got into them in the first place, because everybody was like, "Oh, these crash half the time, and they're built wrong, and you can't even load them half the time." But now I'm so hooked on them, it doesn't matter. I like them anyway. But yeah, it works great. We got to use them last week in Texas, and I got to use them locally. I've retested some of the local Wherigos with it that I've already found or built, and it works almost too smooth. It takes the challenge out of Wherigo, so it's perfect.
Hopefully all
right?
the crashing and the bugs that you talked about previously were fixed, because there was complaints about the cartridges crashing and things like that on the old version. And I haven't seen too many crash reports on the new one. So
no, and I can tell you for a fact lots of the old ones would crash. Yeah, on the old app, I know that for a fact. Which just raise the difficulty level, right? That makes it more fun and challenging.
Yeah, and on the new one, I tried to make it easier for people to get the cartridges. On the old one, it was difficult. You had to browse the website through the app, and now you can just see a map and see the ones around you, or zoom to a different location and load them, and then quickly download them right through the interface. So it's much easier to get the cartridges and to play them than it was previously. And I wanted to get that barrier to entry down so that people could actually experience it.
Well, and that's the thing, and I'm sure I don't understand the back end stuff, so I'm not even going to try to pretend like I do. But I'm sure you used a lot of the old platform to kind of base the new one on, because it has a similar feel to it or whatever. But it's it's a completely different experience for sure.
Yeah, most of the playing part used a lot of the same code. A lot of it was built for old devices way before even like the taller iPhones, which was like the iPhone 5. So it was basically like iPhone 4 and below was the interfaces. So there was a lot of work just to fix that, to make it look good on the larger displays. So there was a lot of finessing and updating the user interface. But yeah, essentially a lot of the code of the playing and reading of the cartridges was the same. So
do you know we didn't have all the information on this one. A lot of times we talk to you frequently, but we can't keep up with everything, right? Obviously, there's so much going on and you're so busy too. But didn't they stop supporting the old app before this one came in? Like, they didn't update it with some of the new iOS stuff, right? The old app, and then this one came out after that. I think that's how I remember it happening.
The old app was on the old API, and so there was a lot of people couldn't log in. There was issues with searching and different things like that. So it was essentially broken, and so it really needed an update. It needed a fix, and that was one of the main things, was to move it over to the new API, and so that had to be done, or else it wasn't. And in the process of that, there was things that Apple had now required that was already built into the old version, and those things had to be changed to submit a new version.
Right.
And so that was actually a lot of work as well, and things that people would have never noticed, and they still probably don't, but Apple required these changes that took a long time. So
I remember for a short period of time, somebody I think it's somebody that's in the audience now too, but they messaged us and said, because people are on top of things, right? Like they told us, hey, the Wherigo app is no longer in the Apple Store.
Yeah.
So after a minor heart attack, I started looking for answers. I was like, oh my God.
Like,
They didn't tell us they killed Wherigo. And then
it was a short transition period where it was gone, and then the new one came out. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, this group, people that solve puzzles and run around the world for fun, they pick up on stuff immediately, and it was a minor panic for a short period of time.
I was watching the forums, and I saw that. Yeah, for sure.
Yes, he was a little freaked out, but it worked out. Teresa asking, I guess we probably do need to just clarify the fact that the Wherigo app is just like any other app, separate. So
it's standalone.
It's not
think
built,
Adventure Labs, right?
Yeah.
Is that a good analog for that? Adventure Lab app, it's separate. Right. It's still an HQ app, but it's separate.
Yes, right. It does not. It's not a component of Cachly. It doesn't essentially have anything to do with Cachly. No.
Yep.
No.
So separate app,
separate icon. Yep.
Separate icon and separate everything. Cachly separate as well. Just like anything else. So just like Adventure Labs. Correct. Very good. Correct.
Yep.
Teresa. It works great on this really ancient iPhone, which I'm actually getting a new one, but which is kind of cool to know that if you have an iPhone 8, I think this is an 8, it works great. It opens quickly. It works great. I assume that, like you said, there's the range goes back to 4 or 5. You said
that was what the old code supported. I think the minimum version is iOS 10, which is iPhone
iOS 10.
5. Yeah, I think. And most people have more than iPhone 5 nowadays. I think that's 6 years old, something like that.
Yeah, very good.
Or older.
Yeah. So a couple notes we want to mention for people about the Wherigo. You've already, there's been an update on it, Nick, already?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm on 156.
Yeah, that's the newest one, and that added some additional filtering search options, as well as kind of indicating on the map if you owned a Wherigo, or if you had found, or if there was disabled. So just a couple different statuses that wasn't being shown before. It was just it was missing a bunch of those statuses, kind of like Cachly shows, something's disabled or enabled, or if you're the owner and there's a star. So those were kind of some of the updates.
Right. Wherigo update included bringing the app up to date, with the new geocaching API, as well as updated device sizes. That's something I guess we probably want to mention up front, is that got to make sure we keep these separate. But Wherigo obviously is part of the API because it's geocaching's app.
Yep.
But we'll talk about some other things tonight, which also is, since you are a API partner.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think we won't get into tonight, but pretty much all the apps that people might use, whether it be, we have a lot of Android people in the audience. Thank you for being along for the ride tonight. Hopefully you'll learn stuff as well that's, go, oh, hey, I could do that as well, because it might be agnostic, as they say, as far as you might learn something that fits for both iOS or Android. But most of the people that are out there that build the major ones are all API partners, and that's important.
Yeah.
So Another note, let's see, added an ability to search your current area using a map or browsing other locations and seeing where I goes, which you could then easily download through the app, which is great.
Yeah. Which the old app was lacking, kind of viewing a map and seeing what was around you was not part of the old app. So
yeah, that's
it was almost impossible to get cartridge download in the old app. You had to, the way I had to do it was go to the web browser, download a cartridge, then send it over, and then every time Apple would update anything, it'd be different.
Yeah,
it'd be a different way to get down, and you could still do it. It just took you a really long time. It was very cumbersome, and hopefully it didn't crash.
Yeah, when I was working with the old code and trying to understand how it worked, it was very, very cumbersome and hard to get those cartridges downloaded. Even to test them, it was just very difficult.
And and honestly, that's not to bash the old app, because it was built at a time where the technology was definitely different. It has changed a lot since that was built. So the pace it changes nowadays. Well, I'm talking to you, so this is silly to say, but it changes so frequently, right? I mean, all those updates you have to do all the time. It's you're always doing an update to the apps and stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think one thing cool I wanted to bring up too, while we're kind of wrapping up on talking a little bit about where I go, was, let me find it again, is Kitty Catch. She says the new Where I Go app is fabulous. We have to remember Kitty Catch is in Australia. So I guess there's really no, it's kind of like the Cachly app or the the geocaching, their app. Everything works pretty much in any country. Yeah. So there isn't anything you really have to do specifically for different countries for Where I Go, or was it?
The only thing that was added was localization or translation of language to German. So that's just the interface. It wasn't the cartridges. You couldn't download an English cartridge and then have it automatically translated. It was just the interface, But I think having Germany being, I think, about the second most popular place in the world for geocaching, or maybe even the first, it was a no-brainer to get that translated to German. Yeah.
When Cache Lines does, it definitely helps bring it to a wider audience, and like you were mentioning, it's a lower entry, right? If you're new to the game, which, as we've said a million times, 5 million people joined during the pandemic. You're not going to go through the motion of trying to deal with that old Where I Go app. It's good that you have the new app now. So, or that HQ has the new app. That you built, but because that would scare somebody away in a heartbeat. Hey, this is a great game. Try this. I can't figure that out.
Right.
Yeah, and the old one gave the impression that it was kind of dead. That Where I Go was dead. Just the icon and the app not filling your screen. If you had a larger device, it just felt like, wow, this hasn't been updated in 5 years. It's probably not ever going to be updated.
Well, it kind of breathes new life, and it gives me hope, because I was kind of worried that, although we've been assured many times Where I Go's not going anywhere, you hear that, but there's no updates, and you're like, are they going to keep it? There's a lot of other big projects they could work on, and the fact that they have this new app is very encouraging for us huge Where I Go fans out there. So
I like the fact that the downloaded cartridges are there. I don't have to go redo them or anything like that, and so it's kind of nice. You can see whatever current downloaded ones I have, I can then pull them up and go. If I don't do it that day, but I'm going to do it another day, all the cartridges are ready to go again.
And there's also, if you download it through the app, there's a correlation between the geocache and the cartridge. When previously they were disconnected, and if you had a cartridge, you'd have no idea what cache it was associated with. And now you have a little bit of association. You can tap on the info icon and you can view the geocache and kind of have those connected, which is helpful.
Right.
So, and again, there was people testing this. There was beta testers and people at HQ that were testing it. So these are not all concepts and ideas that I came up with myself. It was a lot of people helping with this as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it brings Where I Go back to a viable icon type.
Right.
It really wasn't for a while. I mean, we could all still do them. I mean, we do all kinds of stuff, right, as cachers, but your average cacher was not. And they were extremely rare because people just didn't want to deal with them. And makes it a lot easier to find them. Hopefully, there'll be some improvements eventually on the builder part. That's a different show, but
Yeah,
that's it, what Adam just said.
Carrot Killer mentioned. Yeah,
But at least there's tons of them out there, and the finding of them right now just got easier. So hopefully that'll encourage people to hide more, and then it'll, generate more interest on that other side too.
Yeah, that's something. Lindsay, thanks for mentioning. We'll probably do that again. Not too distant future. We'll go back through about Wherigo's. Do you still have that favorite? Don't you, Jesse? The one that's fairly new, that is kind of, what's the one we talked about the other day, which you're hoping we could
Here we go.
Get resurrected.
It's not new, but it is out there.
Okay.
It's not as well known as some of the other builders, but yeah, and we'll have to get into the builder show on a different one.
Definitely.
That's a whole show, at least a show, because it can be done. There's a bunch of them out there, but there is an added level of difficulty to build a Wherigo as opposed to some other cache types.
Yeah.
But there's no builder on iPhone. It was a part of her question.
There's no builder on iPhone, but Wherigo is the one that's online.
Yeah.
So you could access it, right? But there is no iPhone builder. If there was, I promise you I don't it. There's no doubt about it. I'd be the first one to sign up for that.
Yeah. Ranger Fox is one that tends to be mentioned quite often.
Yep. That's also online. It's not an iPhone native app or anything. There's no
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's move on to the next interesting topic that I think we can talk about. And again, I'm going to follow your lead on this. Waymarkly?
Waymarkly. Yes.
Waymarkly. That's exciting.
It's it'll be a new app having to do with waymarking. If anybody's ever used waymarking.com. So it's a separate game from geocaching, but sort of similar in the sense that they are you are visiting locations or finding locations that are interesting. There's no physical container or anything like that, but it's a very similar game, and the app uses the Cachly kind of framework and design. So people are familiar with Cachly, they're going to be very familiar with using the Waymarkly app. So, and you use your same geocaching.com login. There's a lot of integration with that. It will be an official partner app.
Right.
But people that used to use waymarking.com, they were limited to the website. It was a little clunkier. It was difficult to browse a map. The website hasn't been updated in a little while.
Right.
And so at least the beta testers that have used so far, including people at HQ, have been really excited about the prospect of getting this out to the general public, because everybody so far has really loved it.
That's cool. Yeah. We talked about a little before the show that, Jess and I both haven't done waymarks of late. And what's interesting about that is that, with an app, you clearly would do more waymark. It'd be easier to do a waymark, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to do now. The fact that you have to go, I need to either try to pull it up on my browser and then try to clunkily go through that, or it's just so easy to have an app for it, and
that's impractical. Who's going to do that out in the field, right? You're not going to do that. So without an app, you're not going to. It would never. Well, I can't say that because tons of people actually do it right now.
Some people use the browser on their phone and do it that way. So
rough.
For me, it wasn't a viable option, but apparently a lot of people do. And Gary and I have met people at, what year was that in Texas, that they were having a Waymark meetup?
Yeah, they were.
Which Gary and I were quite shocked.
Yeah.
We kind of forgot about it as a separate aspect of the game. And, it's logged in and we've done it before. And like we talked about before the show, the tie-in to geocaching is, if you like challenges, which many of us do, there are still challenges out there for finding waymarks. You can't do it under the new rules, but there are still old challenges out there.
That is cool. I did not even think about that until you brought it up. And you said you'd found 50 50 challenges out there for waymarks, Jesse?
A rough search immediately showed 51 challenges out there. Now, that's just searching by the ones that had actually Waymark in the name of the challenge. So there may be more, that have multiple things, but just doing a quick search,
Right.
which is the only reason I even heard about Waymarks in the first place was because of the challenge.
Yeah.
That I was introduced to in the first place. So
you got people they've never done it. They get a chance to do some waymarks for the first time. Just download the app. Well, once it's available,
when it's
download the app
released.
and go.
yeah.
But a lot of the people that I've that are beta testing and that I've talked to, they want to do both, so they can geocache and then they want to see also the waymarks, on the way to the geocache. So they want to do both at the same time rather than maybe do waymarking at one time period and then geocaching at another time period. Mm-hmm. So there will be integration between the two. You'll be able to send waymarks over to Cachly and you can put them in an offline list. And so you could see all of those types on the map. And then when you go to a waymark, it'll pop you back over to the Waymarkly app and you could log it over there. So there is some integration between the two if you want to be doing geocaching and waymarking at the same time. And then another thing is if you've purchased my premium offline maps, you won't have to purchase those a second time, and it actually uses shared data, so you won't have to download things twice. They'll just appear in the other app if you're using those maps in the other app. So yeah.
And just to kind of make another clarification here is that Waymarkly is your app.
Yeah. Yep.
Obviously API partner, so it works with that, but that's not, we'll call it owned by geocaching. It's really owned by you.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So, but very cool. So yes, iOS, somebody was asking earlier. Yes, iOS, you're not
For
you're not
iOS.
crossing over right now.
Sorry, Android.
Sorry, Android. But so it'll be in some ways, if people are familiar with Cachly, you feel like that people using Cachly, they'll feel like they'll be already kind of get an idea of what Waymarkly will look like in a sense.
Yes, the interface is very much the same. It's a different color scheme, but the UI and everything, the feel of it is very much similar to Cachly. Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah.
So, is it kind of like, and we haven't seen it, so that's why we're asking the questions or whatever,
Sure.
but so when somebody opens this up, how does this, in general, how will the Waymark app work? Kind of like Cachly where there's different icon types? Because Waymark has like tons, and honestly, we're not as familiar with Waymarking, even though we've been in the game a long time, right? But
Sure.
there's different types and things like that. Will they be able to search by types? Because there's categories.
There's
it's like a whole new game.
Yeah, so there's the same where you can browse on the map. You can see all the icons on the map. It will show the different icon types, which are different category types.
Cool.
You can browse categories. You can save them offline, just similar to Cachly. There's a lot of
yes.
Buy Apple.
Always time to buy an Apple.
Yeah. So I don't know if you can see this, but this is essentially the interface.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You see all the little pins on the map.
Oh, cool.
And they all have icon types, and similar to Cachly, you tap it and it pops up.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
With the option. So people will be used to it. They will be used to how to interact with it, how to load waymarks and things like that. But again, it has the categories, which is different than geocaching. So you can view all these different categories. You can start out with historical places, and then you get deeper into more categories and subcategories, and then you can either view the waymarks for that category or go deeper into more subcategories. So it's those kind of things are different than geocaching. And then there's filtering options for searching and things like that. Yeah.
And I don't think you've mentioned it yet, but Waymarkly is not out yet. It will be out, though.
It is not out yet. I'm hoping early summer is kind of like my hope.
Right.
But it's very close to being finished. And then I'll try to make announcements about it and let people know. I've created a separate Facebook group, but I still kind of post things on the Cachly user group so people know. Yeah.
Very cool.
And somebody asked, do you publish? Would you go to the website still to publish a new Waymark, or could you do that through the app?
Still not a way to do it through app. Just like every geocaching app, you can't publish a geocache through any app. There will be a link if you go to categories, which again is different than geocaching, but if you go to, for example, like a category for historical statue or something like that, there will be an interface in Cachly where you can pop up creating a new waymark for that category, so you don't have to drill down on the website to find that category again. So it'll be a little bit of a help, and it shouldn't be too hard through the app. But again, yeah, you do have to use the website to submit a new one.
Cool.
Yep.
I see a lot of integration back and forth, even though you can't do challenges now. Obviously, it's an overlapping crowd, without a doubt, right? But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean you couldn't do a puzzle related to some waymark categories, which I suspect with more people getting access to it now, not that they didn't have access to it before, but easy access.
Yeah.
More people get into the game. I suspect we'll see some puzzles pop up that are interrelated. It's such a close game. I mean, it's owned by geocaching.com, but it's such a close game. I can see a lot of back and forth there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more people using it. Just get more people trying it out that have never heard of it or just never tried it because of there not being a mobile app for it. Yeah.
Well,
Here's one that I have no idea what the answer to this one is.
Oh, this is
Silly
separate.
question: can I airdrop a cartridge to another device?
That's back on. You're talking about back to where I go.
You can from your Mac. If you have a Mac, you can, and you have the cartridge on your desktop. Yeah, you can airdrop it to your phone, and it will open the Waymark or the Wherigo app. But you can't send one from like one phone to your iPad. There's not an interface to send a cartridge from device to device.
And apparently, there's already plenty of puzzles based on waymarks.
Awesome.
Okay, cool.
Shows what I know.
Hey, it's good to know, though.
Hey, I like to learn new stuff too, right? So that's great.
I was surprised that popping it up. I knew there was a lot, but apparently they passed the 900,000 mark for waymarks. So
Yeah, there's a lot
there's
around
a
the
lot.
world. Yeah.
You could really get after it. We joke about Wheat Jesus. Wheat Jesus.
Apparently, there's waymarks in Kansas by
that's
Mingo.
in Colby.
So.
Yeah, that's near Mingo. There's a famous billboard called, people call it Wheat Jesus because it's in a wheat field and there's Jesus, so it's called Wheat Jesus.
Interesting.
But
But
anyway,
it's famous
yeah.
in Kansas, so
Famous. It's a landmark in Kansas, and of course, it's a waymark. And then the now famous Mingo plaque has a waymark on it.
it has a couple waymarks on it.
Couple waymarks on it. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So there
you
you
can
go.
create waymarks for almost anything. I created one because I needed to test it for the app for a local historic church in my area.
Yeah,
And
perfect. Well,
it's
That seems
different than submitting a geocache because every category has different requirements for submission. So it's interesting because somebody owns each category, and so it's a different person that's created kind of the rules for how to submit a waymark for that category.
And it's
Oh.
interesting.
Yeah.
Burnt Turtle says, I use waymarks to solve puzzles. He says, don't tell anybody. You just told us, Burnt Turtles. What are you going to do now? I mean,
We're not telling anybody. Nobody's paying attention.
nobody's
Okay.
listening.
Yeah. Hey, we use every tool at our disposal to solve puzzles, right? That's how that's supposed to work.
Yep.
I'm really interested to see, and I'm sure you'll be tracking numbers, and you and HQ together will be tracking numbers as well too. But I'm really just interested to see how this will affect waymarking traffic.
Yeah.
It's got to be a huge boost to it. So
I hope so. Yeah.
I like what I think we mentioned a lot here already. Viewing the waymarks, view logs, view images. That's gonna be great.
All the normal stuff that's similar to geocaching. Yeah.
Yeah.
and Waymark still has their version of challenges too. We're gonna have to do a whole show on Waymark, the actual Waymark stuff, because so many of us are so far behind. But they've got those like the group scavenger hunts, and there's so much to it. There's a lot.
And those are the kind of things that I'm no Waymark expert. I'm just the developer of this app.
Right.
So those kind of things, yeah, like the group, whatever you were saying, I saw those on the website, and I don't even know what those are. There's
Scavenger hunts.
the
Yeah,
scavenger
yeah.
hunts.
They have
It's a
public
whole
content,
nother
have a lot
like
of stuff on
component. Yeah, there's a whole nother component of the website that is not part of the app.
there. Yeah.
So if anybody-
So we're gonna have with this. This is gonna obviously make people more interested in waymarking. So
Yeah.
we're gonna have to, because Gary and I are not experts in waymarking, so we're gonna have to bring an expert on for sure.
Yeah,
That's a good idea.
most definitely.
Educate us.
But you can see, like right here, I'm logged in with my geocaching,
Yep.
G-Slink and Slinky Mama. So I got my, I'm connected to geocaching .com in that sense. So I'm
Yep.
logged in. Yeah, see, 900,000 waymarks. So the best.
That is a lot.
73,000 historical markers, 27,000 plus war monuments, 6,800 museums, 5,200 local tourism attractions, thousands of others. That's the one thing I do. I guess we kind of joke about, or we kind of something. I guess Jesse, you and I both joke about, or at least I joke about the fact that go, McDonald's has a waymark, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But there are I think some good things that if you're not familiar with an area, like they mentioned here, things like
benchmarks. There's a lot of cross state signs. There's a lot of things in there that wouldn't be necessarily always appropriate for a cache edit, and kind of the history of this is it was part of a result of virtuals going away at one point, right?
I think right. This
at least
was
that's
kind
the
of
rule
where
that you've always heard. So
yeah.
From what I understood was this waymarking, actually geocaching was a category of waymarking in the beginning, and then it split out to its own game, is what I was told by a lackey.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you ignore all the silly ones like McDonald's and stuff like that, like you said, there are some really cool things. I even searching my area, there's some super cool historical places around my area that I never knew about, and you can filter by category. You can filter out all the silly stuff, the restaurants and stuff.
Right.
But there is some really interesting, fun things in nature as well as like in the city and stuff.
Right. I mean, here's one in St. Joe's, Missouri. That's so you can learn about some of the local things that you may not be familiar with, just because you're like, oh, I didn't know that was in town. Like you said.
And to waymarking's defense, geocaching is not immune from low quality hides either.
True.
There's a couple, not that we're going to get into negative stuff, right? But there are good and bad caches, just like there's good and bad waymarks and everything else. So, but there's some neat stuff in there for sure. And for me, Gary's been in the game longer than me. I've only been in the game about 11 years, maybe now, 10 years or so, 11 years.
Yep.
Anytime I can find a new area that I have not really just totally worn out, it excites me. So this is pretty neat, the fact that there's something brand new I can dive into for a while. And you know how we go crazy when we get into a new thing for a while. So you just go completely overboard and do it 24/7.
Yeah.
It's always
boring.
good to do in a game that you've been in for 10 years, right? So
yeah.
Daniel mentioning we need to probably clarify, finding a waymark also count as finding a cache. It does not.
No.
Nope.
It's a separate count.
Separate. Yeah. So it doesn't show up on your geocaching.com stats because, again, they're separate. But you do have stats on Waymark. You can go look. I mean, Jesse you did one for a challenge, right, Jesse? So you had like 40 or more.
I did. That's how I got into it originally, and it was for 350 waymarks.
Okay.
So that's how I originally got into it, and so kind of dived in and did a bunch of waymarks after that.
Right.
And there's user profiles in Waymarkly similar to Cachly where you can see your stats, you can see your finds, your hides. Well, they're called visits instead of
visits.
finds. But
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, are some waymarks also virtual caches or earth caches? I would say
probably so.
I don't think so.
Just by the nature of
Could be wrong.
overlap. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you mean like similar locations?
Yeah, they're not listed
Yeah,
as the same listing,
for
but
sure.
they have the same location. But
yes,
absolutely, I know they are because I've run across those before.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and Jeff wants to mention they are pre-moratorium.
Yep, absolutely.
So, but there's still a lot of challenges out there. I don't know what the total pre-moratorium challenges are. Jeff probably knows. He does Challenge Talk. He's our Challenge Talk expert, so he could probably tell us. But anyway, yeah, very cool. Let's see. Are there more questions?
I think as people get into it, they'll, because a lot of people are familiar with waymarking, but it hadn't been practical, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we're talking about even way less practical than downloading an old cartridge and Wherigo, right? So we're stepping up even further than that. It was just not really, because it was separate, even though you log in with the same and it's owned by HQ and everything, and that waymarking is a geocaching product.
Yeah.
It just seems separate and unrelated. And you couldn't, people do it, obviously. So I'm being silly when I say that, but it was not practical to get out there and pull up a web browser and do that. It was just super hard to do.
Yeah.
So
It really was sort of screaming for an app, because I didn't. The only way I did one, and we'll talk about something else here briefly before we get into Cachly, but I did one day because I was doing different icons. Now it doesn't show up in Project GC, but for me personally, I wanted to just do everything I could think of, and I did 10 icons in a day, and I thought, I'm gonna do a Waymark, just because I want to add whatever I could think of, and did a benchmark and Waymark, and just trying to think about all the different things I could possibly do in the same day, which kind of brings us to the next question, which is some people have mentioned or brought up also in the chat room, which is benchmarks. And so I guess give us an update from Cachly's perspective, and maybe what you have heard as far as any discussions with geocaching.com. So where are we at on benchmarks?
Sure. There's not a Benchmarkly app or gonna be. There is a category in waymarking for benchmarks, and I think that somehow migrating all of the benchmarks from the benchmarking website and things like that will be beneficial. I think the ones that are there were just created by users; they weren't like imported. But I think that's the way to go, is to somehow get all those into the other product, because I think that old database of benchmarking is just so old, and there's not any plans for an API for that or for an app.
Right.
Yeah.
It's something that Jess and I've talked about. I'd still love to see it. I mean, I have an app. It's not really an app. It's this is kind of like what you're saying, what people did with Waymark. I have a link. I have a link on my phone to ngs.noaa.gov.
Yeah, that's the database, or the text files basically for benchmarks.
Right. So I can kind of pull them up, sort of. This is my crude version of an app for it. If people are wondering if you want to do something like that on your phone, you could. I know that there's some discussion in Android. I think there may be something that Android uses that's similar. They don't really have it's
not easy to do.
Yeah, it's a similar thing like that.
Yeah.
There's a way to convert the text files to a GPX, and I think there's a website that can do that, and then you can actually import those into Cachly. Users have done that, so that's kind of a long route. Yeah.
Right.
But you can't log them from there.
No.
Sure, but right. But yeah, kind of. I mean, I would say I'm kind of bummed that they don't have one, because in geocaching.com, I can go look and see all the benchmarks I've ever found inside the app. So
it didn't count as your find count. It's not a geocache find.
No, but it shows up still on the app. Or not the app. It shows up. It shows up on my account within geocaching.
It does. It does show up as an icon under there. Just if you find 10 more tomorrow, your smiley count doesn't go up.
No, but it does show. It does have them listed.
Yeah, it does.
So I mean, some people have done. I mean, you did a ton of them. I mean, I don't have anywhere near the number of.
I've done several. Yeah,
benchmarks.
I did them for challenges. So
I know.
Anything that a challenge has ever been based on, I've done it. So I do those based on that in the past. Pre-moratorium, you can't do it anymore. I understand that, but
yeah, I think they're cool personally for when I'm hiking and you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's a one on the top of a mountain or something like that. That's pretty cool to see for me.
That's the ones I definitely like, and there's several. We're getting off topic, obviously. Benchmarks is not what we're talking about, but
well, we'll talk briefly.
But they are in waymarking, so you will be able to go after them and find a way to log. There is a way to log them now.
Right.
Yes,
Not
but
now.
not all
This
of
summer
them.
there will be.
Yeah, the database. It's not like the database was imported, but there is still quite a few that are in there.
Right.
Yeah.
And hey, maybe that's a challenge. Maybe people will get out there and start putting every single one
Transfer
of them
them
out there
over.
to Waymart now, and
Yeah.
have a way to log. It's user input, but there's ones that have never been found, never been logged on geocaching.com.
Really?
So that's a pretty cool thing, and the fact that they've been out there since the game started, and there's definitely ones that people have not found. So
Yeah.
now there's a
good
practical
idea.
way to possibly do that. I know it's a roundabout way, but for those benchmark hunters out there, it's a category in waymarking, and now you have an app for it. If there's a benchmark there, and if you find one that's not, make one.
Yeah.
So
Be cool if somebody had talked to geocaching.com and said, "Hey, let's import all the benchmarks." Of course, then that would be probably a mess to try to get all. What I mean by that is putting them all into Waymark.
I've started a discussion with them about that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Daniel's one has another question. We're going to get to Cachly some too tonight, but he's asking about. I pulled the wrong one. I'm sorry. We'll get to you in a minute,
Okay.
Jeff. For Nick, is there a chance of a letterbox leak? What he means by that is not the hybrids, but the original, true letterbox.
yeah, whole different company.
I know.
Yeah.
Not related to geocaching.com at all.
I guess I don't know anything about that, so probably not.
Yeah. Letterbox is, I assume, it's still out there.
It
So
is.
there was something
There's,
before the
yeah.
geocache
Yeah.
type? Interesting.
Yeah, letterboxing's been around for.
Yeah, the original version of it, which is it's still out there, and they hand carve stamps, and it's a whole different website. And this is not intended as any disrespect to that website. It's not geocaching.com. So if anybody hears this and goes, "I'm going to go check that out," don't expect the same level of sophistication as you get with geocaching. Right? It's not the same. There is information out. It's kind of like going after benchmark or something like that. It's technically the information's out there, but there's not a super easy user friendly way to do it at all.
In fact, wasn't that kind of the selling point for a letterbox is that you have to follow old school, like go to this tree and take a ride and take 50 steps and
Said letterboxers look at geocachers with suspicion and vice versa. So
Marcellus is correct. Because letterboxers, it's a whole, like I said, it's a whole different thing because it's a game that's not even related, and I'm sure they're not happy with the fact that we call letterbox hybrids letterboxes. I guess is that Jesse's a good way to put it.
it's just two separate games, right? It's actually a little different. So letterboxes are done differently than letterboxes are in geocaching, our hybrid version. And I'm sure when they went about that, they contacted people first. They didn't just rip somebody off,
Yeah.
And that's not geocaching's way. So I'm sure there was some discussions there, but yeah, it's completely different game. Now, if the other letterboxing game had an app built by you, I'd go play that. But I tried and it was horrible. You try to do it and it's not maintained. If they don't have the reviewer infrastructure, they don't have any of that stuff like we have.
Yeah.
And I tried because I have daughters and we play every kind of outdoor game.
Yeah.
It was not usable. They may have changed it in the last couple of years, but now, again, he asked the question, so we're going to say it. If they had an app that was a workable app like these that you're building, it'd be a resurgence. But that's a whole different game, different company, and everything. So.
Yeah.
So let's switch gears now, if we can, and let's talk a little bit about where we are with Cachly, which is the main. Well, you're gonna have your work cut out with the extra.
Yeah, you got a lot of apps now.
Extra app now, buddy. But Cachly, incredible. It's. I'm sorry that Android, doesn't have. I mean, they have apps, and I've been in discussions with people who are like, "Oh, this is great." And I'll go, "Does it do this?" And they go like, "Well," I go, "Okay, well, Cachly does that, Does it do this?" Yeah, sort of. So I kind of, I'm very, very loyal to.
We're biased because that's
We're
what we use
biased.
exclusively. So.
I appreciate the bias. That's fine.
Yeah. So we are currently. Let me see, because I'm always careful to make sure to look. You
It's
can just tell me, but
6.1 point something.
I think it's .12. Is that what it is? Boy, I should know. The last,
Don't
the
feel
last little ones have just been kind of bug fix releases.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's getting up there on the minor versions. Yeah.
I got 6112, but
Yeah.
Okay.
6.12. That's the last one.
6112.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm not releasing any features until 7.0. Unless it's something that HQ releases and I'm trying to get it out there, which was like the attribute search. I released that in, I think, 6.1, and that was kind of a bigger, or maybe it was 6.1 dot something.
Okay.
It was a bigger feature, but released on a minor release.
So I know that from reading the, on the different forums about and website, the different groups, that I know we're in that point, that transition point that's tough, I know, for you, because I saw one just today. Somebody was asking, and you were like, that is scheduled for 7. So I know you can give kind of we've asked before, it's like, is that a summer release, you think, or Cachly 7?
Sometimes it's hard to know since it's not, I'm not geocaching.com.
Right.
It's not my full-time job to develop Cachly, so it's harder to come up with a deadline for release.
Okay.
So I hope this summer would be the goal.
Okay.
And I have a feature list of all these features that I want to add. Sometimes when I get into developing a feature and my beta testers test it, I'm like, boy, this one's taking a lot longer than expected. And so it kind of pushes out a release. So tentatively, it would be this summer would be my hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't feel like there'll be another 6 point something at this stage? The next stage is going to be 7, right? Or you think there'll be another 6 point something?
I don't have plans for 6.2, but
Right.
definitely there would be any little micro releases for major bugs that come up for sure. Yeah, because I have 2 different branches of the code, and so if I need to release something that's based on the 6.1.12 code, I can make those little fixes and release that, and that's separate from the 7.0 stuff that I'm working on.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do you have to keep, because you got to keep your eye in several different directions as a developer, so you got to keep your eye on all the information you're getting from geocaching.com, but also you got to watch what's happening from Apple.
Yes.
Right. So
and
you have to
big,
kind of, right. Go ahead.
Their big developer conference happens in June, and so that's when they'll announce iOS 15 and all the new features, and then usually the release of that is in September. So as a developer, I have to think about, these new features that they're coming out with, how could that make Cachly better? A lot of them aren't geocaching centered, of course, but they could enhance the game somehow. Kind of like with some of the things recently, like adding the images to personal notes. That used an iCloud feature that was available in iOS 13. And so if you're below iOS 13, you don't even see that feature in Cachly. You can't save images to your personal notes. But if you are on iOS 13, then you can. So some of those things, when they released them, Apple released them, I was able to create new features in Cachly. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So that kind of, like you said, you got to factor in. Let's see, if I'm gonna, if Cachly 7 is here, is trending toward this date, and then that September Apple's trending toward this date. You have to kind of, like you said, you got to kind of think about when you release things, because you don't want things, because obviously you don't want both to come out at the same time, because who knows what September is going to look like, and you don't want, you know what I mean? I could see where you got to kind of juggle some things.
Yeah, and you also have to be beta testing the iOS 15 version that Apple developers will get, making sure that there's nothing's crashing on that. just as preemptively like fixing those issues for when the September release.
Cool.
And then there's also HQ releases API updates to us developers. So there could be those kind of things coming out, new features on their end that I'll want to integrate that I didn't even, think about or know that was going to be coming out. So
right, because how in a general sense, how often do they notify you of API changes, or is it not on a consistent schedule?
I don't think there's a consistent schedule.
Okay.
In 2020 there was maybe like 3 different API updates.
Okay.
And we would get emails. All the developers that are in the program
Right.
would get emails about it. I think the last one was last September. But there is a few things even from a year ago that I haven't integrated in Cachly. For example, like you can there's an API for bulk uploading or visiting trackables. Before it would have to be like if somebody wanted to visit 10 of them that were in their inventory, they would have to make 10 API calls, and HQ released an update where you can do up to 50 at one time with one API call, and that was like last March. But I just haven't had a chance to add that to Cachly, so that will be in 7.0, and it'll make it quicker and easier for users to, especially if they have a bunch of them that they visit for every single geocache. There's
Right.
people that are really into trackables and they want to like visit like 50 or something like that.
Right.
It'll make that much easier than sitting there and waiting for all those logs to just get, the visit logs happening to the API.
Well, and it's funny because you say visit 50 for the people that are really into trackables. That's a low number. There's people that are really.
I was
into
trying.
any
I was
aspect of
trying to
this
go
game,
really
they
low.
do hundreds of everything. So it's again like Waymarkly, and we mentioned benchmarks and Wherigo and everything else. People that are into a certain category, they're generally deep into it. So they love this one little feature change that you do in here, and we're going to talk in a minute. Some of us may never even realize that it's in there, and some people will use that every single day as something that's their main objective. So it's got to be
especially
an
the
odd
trackable
thing.
Yeah, I've gotten emails from specific people, and they're like, I'm trying to visit 150 trackables for every geocache, and it just, it's something's happening. I was like, I've never even tested that, amount of trackables visited. So you might be running into bugs that I've never even experienced.
Right.
But
yeah, so we'll take a few minutes right now. I guess we can talk about kind of what sort of a sneak peek into 7. A couple things you noted. Major Cachly Watch app updates.
Redesigned app and rebuilt to include a lot more features. So waypoints, corrected coordinates, which were missing from before.
Jesse, show off.
I got mine right there.
Show again, Jesse.
Awesome.
Let's see it.
Yep.
Logs, view your personal notes, and there's more attributes, things like that you'll be able to view. So it will be a more full-featured geocaching app on your watch, not just kind of like a little component. It's more way full-featured. So it's pretty cool to sit there and browse logs and view images and things like that on your watch, at least if you're into Apple Watch.
Yeah, Apple Watch.
I would think with Apple Watch, the biggest thing that's going to control what you do with it is what Apple allows on the Apple Watch, because they keep updating it and there's new features added. I mean, it changes a lot since it's first come out. The watch has so. Yeah,
and I think the best hardware update that Apple released was the compass, because I had been waiting for years and years and years for a real compass, and then with the Series 5, they released the real compass, and so now Cachly can actually use a real compass on your watch, as before it was just using GPS direction that you were moving the course direction, which was really poor.
Right.
Yeah. Guess I'm getting a new Apple Watch.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, you need the Series 5 for the compass.
Okay, get Series 5. There you go.
Yeah.
So live search templates. What can we talk about with that?
Yeah, so that's for when you're on the live tab, and there's all those search options, and people have requested in the past. I have to toggle these on and off and change the the options, and then when I want to go do something else, those are all lost. So now it's going to be templates similar to offline filtering templates.
Yeah.
So you can set a bunch of options, and you can save that, and then go to a different template, or just kind of go back to defaults, and then you can load that other one again. So you can name a bunch of them. You can have them for different kind of trips or different kind of challenges you're doing, and so you can just load those and unload those kind of on the fly.
I like that.
Yeah, it'll make it a lot easier to just have a bunch of different categories of searches that you want to do.
Love it.
Yeah.
That'll be very handy. We do a lot of that. I use that filter nonstop when we're out searching, and I cache different ways with different groups, or even on different days. But a lot of that's the same every time. It's just those different set things. That'll be very convenient.
Yeah, and these will be synced across devices, so people that use an iPad and an iPhone, those will appear on both devices if you're logged into iCloud. So that's how we sync it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Next one. Native HQ Solution Checker integration.
Yeah, so that's another one that HQ released to partners, I think, last March, and it's just something that I hadn't had a chance to integrate. And especially since they added a new attribute for that, and you can filter by attributes, you can actually just filter for those kind of, if you wanted to, you could actually just filter for those kind of caches on the live tab and see those. I think more and more people are using the native checker than some of those other ones, Certitude and stuff like that.
Some inside templates, yay! Okay, very cool. I like that. Yeah, because the solution checker, it's there, and now integrated into Cachly. That's going to be great.
Mm-hmm.
Option to view all waypoints on all caches.
Yeah, so this is something that's been requested for a long time by users as well as some of my beta testers. As if you're going to a cache and there's waypoints of another cache on your trip or on your on your hike, you're going to miss those. So now you can show all of those and you can see them, and then you can visit those other waypoints. So you can toggle those on and off really quickly. You can turn off certain kind of waypoint types if you don't want to see parking locations, if you don't care about those. That can be turned off and you never see those on the map. And then there's, like I said, there's a kind of a quick toggle that you can use now to kind of flip those on and off.
Good.
So it's helpful for people that are interested in seeing that, And that'll be on the live map and on offline.
Yeah, I always like those in the settings where you can toggle them. Those are always nice. All the different things you can toggle.
Yeah,
is nice. So you can kind of pick and choose what you want or what you don't want, just like that.
Yeah, and that option will be off by default. We're not forcing that on users by any means.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's nice to have. It's nice to have that possibility. So.
Option. Yeah.
Yeah. Many more major features that will be announced in the future. I like that. More to come.
Yeah. More to come. Yeah. This is one of the probably the largest feature releases that I can think of in a long time. So I will be announcing a lot of the upcoming features. So quite a list of features that I've been working on.
That is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Do you still get a lot of requests for features? I know you keep that open and you let people send in requests, and you do a good job of communicating with people. Are you still getting a lot of requests for new things?
Yeah, all the time. I think it was last week or the week before I put a question out on social media and on the Facebook group about new features, looking for ideas, and there was probably I think like 300 comments on there of just different ideas. A lot of them I replied to and said, hey, this will be in 7.0. Some of them were obscure or too difficult, things like that, and I said I couldn't respond to every single one, but a lot of them were great ideas. A lot of them were already ones that were planned. So it's just I enjoy doing that because I can see ideas from a wide variety of people.
Yep.
Is there a common request that you get that is just impossible currently?
Yeah, message center.
Oh yeah,
integrated message center. Yeah,
not allowed.
Since you brought that up, why is that why is that impossible currently?
Privacy is what I've been told, and that's understandable because you would be seeing private messages. A third party person that's not a employee of HQ would be seen or be able to access the private conversations of users. So that's especially in like the UK with GDPR or whatever it's called. I think that would be a big privacy issue. So that's what I've been told. So
yeah,
that actually makes sense though. I mean, that really does. So
yeah. And I don't think a lot of people understand that. There's no like disclaimer that I pop up and it says, it's a privacy issue. That's why I can't do it. So I just have to educate people about why it's not possible.
So what? So Brian's asking, what is your favorite new feature for 7.0?
Oh boy, probably some features that I haven't talked about yet that are still on the list will be my favorite. So I won't say.
We're looking forward to it.
Teaser. I like it.
I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming Rich is how I can say this one.
Oh, Rich is one of my beta testers.
Yeah. He sounded like he had quite a lot of knowledge. I assumed he was one of your beta testers. Said some ideas were already in Cachly, so the post was an educational moment.
Yeah.
Brings up a great point. Gary and I are both what I would call heavy users of Cachly, and many of the people are here. And still at some point we're talking, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that feature would do that. There's so many features, even if you use it every single day, which we literally do.
Yep.
There's so many features in there. It's hard to remember everything that it does. There's so much.
Yeah. There's times that I forget. I'm like, is that in there? And I think that's another problem, is that I think the one thing that's lacking is documentation. And my beta testers have done a great job, because we have a wiki page that documents, a lot of the features, but I think it could use a lot of work. And so that's something I hope to do in the future. But again, it's like the secondary thing after developing features is I think about, I need to document these and let people know about these things. And again, as a small business and a side project, it's hard to do.
Oh,
What was that?
Is that a public wiki page?
It's a public wiki
page. Or is that just for the developer side of it?
No, if you go to cache.ly/help or use the help option in the more tab of Cachly, it'll take you to the wiki page.
So that would be a good location for people to go and really dig deep into a lot of the features.
Yes, and it's a wiki. People can sign up and they can contribute to it, just like Wikipedia, if they're interested.
Here's somebody asking for a Cachly 101 class. I would tell people that, there's the...
Yep.
I would tell people that is a good local event. We've done them around here, and that's something good to do to get your people together. Have a look when you can. I know that's a sore subject for a lot of people around, but when you can have events again, get people together, and you'd be surprised the knowledge that's already out there. And when you share that, you can really maximize the use of these apps. Like this.
And I actually have a slide presentation that I provide to people who are interested in doing events. I've had people ask me, and ones that I've used myself at events. And so if anybody is interested in that, I have like a PDF or even it's an Apple presentation that people can use. So
then Rich again said part of the wiki is getting started with Cachly. So there's a lot of information out there, and no matter how good you think you are with your app, I guarantee you people have used some of the features in ways that you're probably not using. So
absolutely. Yeah.
One thing that Kelly brought up is that I love the highlighting still. I ran out of colors.
I think there's 16 colors.
16
Maybe
colors.
there's 12, but that's a lot of colors to run out of.
That is a lot of colors. Have you been surprised, and I'm sure you have more than once, but have you been surprised by how some people are using some of the features?
Yeah, especially like the colors. People are like, I need more colors, and I'm like, how would you need more colors? And people have said, I want two colors or multiple colors to mark a cache with. Right. So that's something I had never thought of. And like, it wasn't built that way when I built that feature, so I would really have to change it. But it's something to think about for sure.
It's cool.
Yeah.
And then sort of another airdrop question was, will templates be shareable by airdrop?
The new templates, no, that's not something that I had planned. Okay. But it's a good idea. I mean, they essentially are a file on the file system, so it's not something that would be impossible to share. It's just not something I had planned.
Yeah, I think that's something too that from our perspective, I think it's good to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Oh, Rich is saying 20 colors.
Oh, 20 colors.
Cool.
See, I forget these things.
Yeah.
And then they're great for challenges, so that's what some people are using them for.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
I think those are good. It's always good to have you on too to talk about some, because sometimes we don't know from when you look at it, you could say, well, that looks like something that can be transferable. And like you said, there's times we've talked about in the past where you're like, well, that's not part of, that's in there, but it's not something that's, like you said, it's not a file that can be moved.
Yeah.
So there's different things sometimes that would have to be built into it.
Some things seem easier
Yes.
to a user's perspective than from a developer's perspective.
Right.
Might be very difficult on my end to accomplish something really simple on the front end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Many years ago, when I asked you about, hey, can we get this to go sideways? And you're like, that's harder than it sounds. And,
Yeah,
it worked out.
yeah.
It's one of those flipper. It's got the toggle. It's got a toggle switch. So
most things are possible.
all orientations or portrait or whatever you want.
Yeah.
There you
It's
go.
an option.
Yep.
If you want to go landscape, you can. But that's a example comes to my mind is the fact that sounds easy, but may not be easy. It may not be developer wise easy. So
Yeah.
It's just magic in the background, right? There's no real work there. You just like cast a spell and it all shows up.
Yep. Just does itself.
One thing I've noticed too, besides the messages, is when they're doing promotions like Wonders of the World,
Oh,
that
yes.
stays on theirs.
Oh,
But that's an HQ choice, right? That's not something you're just saying, I'm not interested in that.
Correct. And there is an API to show the current promotion, and you can kind of pop up like a web view.
Yeah.
But again, that's just like a preview, letting users know, and so that's something I haven't chosen to include. But yeah, the integration that's probably a lot of work on their end, and then it disappears once that game is over. So I'm assuming they probably don't think developers want to do the work, and I probably wouldn't. You'd have to know way in the future and add that, and it would be a lot of work, and then it would just disappear later. You have to take it away.
Right.
So,
and that's their thing. If they want to keep it on there, I'm as big a fan of Cachly as anybody, but HQ is still HQ. They've got to have some things that they get to hold on to, right? So
absolutely, yeah.
I like how you added things like souvenirs. What's interesting too is that I like looking at the souvenirs on Cachly because they're in order of when I completed them. Whereas if you go to geocaching.com, the souvenirs are kind of a mess, in my opinion.
Is there a strange order on there?
I think it's alphabetical by the name of the souvenir, which is not always the name that you would normally think it
I don't
was.
want that. I want to know when I did them. That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
What's my latest one? So
that's just sorted by date. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you that you do that. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
And that's actually the way that the API sends them, is sorted by date.
Sorted by date. So I don't know why they
yeah.
redo it, or at least give me the option. I don't even have the option on the website.
Maybe there's a way to sort them. There's no sorting option. I don't ever look at those on the website.
I don't either. So
I don't think there's a sorting option. I don't think I've seen one. Maybe somebody could probably correct me if I'm wrong. But when I look at it, in fact, I've searched for a search option. But anyway, so a few more questions before we wrap up tonight. Somebody's Pizza Ninja asking about future version of Cachly. Can we customize what sound or song plays when we get near a cat?
I have had that requested quite a few times. Right now, there's just defaults. They're talking about the proximity alert. Right now, there's just defaults, but it's something to consider. I don't know I don't know how widely that would be used. I'll make a note of it.
Okay, sure.
But I think there's just a select amount of people that would actually be interested in that.
Right.
So
Interesting though. I mean, there's, like you said, you get. I'm glad that people are actively wanting to see things in it, and you've added so many things already. It's been tremendous, and I know that one of the things that you've mentioned in the past, which has been a great positive aspect of Cachly, is your beta testers. I mean, you really do have a great,
absolutely, yeah.
A great bunch. But Jesse and I both will run into people who are beta testers from time to time, or they'll come up in the show or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just been it's been neat to kind of hear about how the interaction's been. So at least I think our experience has always been the beta testers have been really happy with being beta testers, and I know you've mentioned before that it's great to see that.
Absolutely. I think they enjoy it, hopefully. But
yes,
I couldn't do it without them. It's absolutely essential that they help, and I very much appreciate it. I try to compensate them in small ways here and there.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, we're talking daily on Slack and checking in on things and submitting bugs, and I'm replying and working on things, and then they'll check the fixes, and so it's a continual group of us that are working on things. It's not just me thinking my own ideas and never taking input. I'm always taking suggestions, and they might say, "Hey, why did you create something this way?" And I'll be like, thinking about it, and realize then that I was wrong and that I should have created it a different way. So it's definitely valuable feedback.
No, that's excellent.
One aspect of Cachly that I use I say it's an aspect of Cachly, but the Apple CarPlay, which is probably like the smallest group of people ever that use that, right? But do they do any updates that they send you? Does Apple have any plans to do anything more that would be useful for you on the CarPlay stuff?
I mean, there's a lot that I could do, but it's you have to submit an application as a developer to Apple, and I've done that twice now, and they've never responded. So they have to approve an application or a use for it, and apparently they don't care about geocaching. So I've had it requested by lots of users. I've tried, but I can't do anything. I can't even start playing with development until Apple sends me a specific little code to allow me to play with it and write the code for it. So
I assume they would be a little more guarded on that because it's essentially
they're very guarded
vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So I could see how they would want to not just release that as quickly.
Yes, there's no just like free for all. Any developer creates anything, games and everything on CarPlay. It's very specific uses. So I submitted it for the navigation category. Saying it's a navigation app, but maybe they think it's too much looking at your screen while you're driving, and they might think that's dangerous. That's kind of what I've figured. But I mean, it's no different than using Waze and tapping on it to go find, a restaurant or something like that, or changing your music.
Sure.
I would assume.
I would agree.
So,
Rich asked about any hope of HQ extending new published caches to SMS, not Cachly per se. I don't know.
Like texting SMS?
I'm not sure.
Rich, what do you mean?
Ask again. Yeah.
Yeah. While Rich kind of clarifies that, I do want to mention something that I appreciate, the fact that I've had Cachly since the beginning, and but I want to remind people of something very important. On the page, there is a thing called Tip the Developer. So please click on that from time to time. You tip your DoorDash people, hopefully, or you tip various people, and you can go in and give a tip for Cachly.
Yeah, and hopefully you're using Cachly way more than DoorDash. So
yeah, hopefully.
think of the value you get there, or hopefully you are anyway. So
think of the value. Yeah, DoorDash is not going to help you find a cache, but Cachly.
And Nick will never bring that up, but we will. So
we're going to bring it up.
Nick's too humble to bring that up, but we are
very
not.
Very kind.
So,
so he's saying about FTF. So, because there are a lot of FTF hounds out there that are wanting to go find a.
So is he saying like some kind of alert, like if you get near an FTF, it would send you a message? I think that's what he's asking, or I don't know.
Maybe Rich, you can clarify on our
we may have to
area.
We may have to give him to send us a question offline or something, but the FTF. I have abused that so much anyway. When we're riding through a town, doing on a road trip.
Oh, Gary, you're too kind. Thank you.
No problem.
I will definitely keep the map open just in case I come by an FTF, and I will straight steal it from anybody's town that I'm coming through. So I don't care. I don't have that etiquette where I save it for the town. I'm going to take it.
I didn't know that etiquette existed.
It does in some areas. People get mad if you come and swoop through their town in the middle of the night and steal their FTFs.
Instant alert on new caches on phone. Okay,
so like a push notification, kind of like the HQ app does. Yeah. Currently, there's no way that Cachly can know, when that happens. So the best way to do is just if you get that email, to copy the link that's in the email, and then you can paste that into the search in Cachly. That's what I tell people to do. It's it's the other way to do it. But no, there's a whole system that Apple has for push notifications and authenticating those and what devices it goes to, and so it would not be possible for HQ to integrate that with all these partner apps and have them send out to the apps, and it's not possible.
Right.
If I own geocaching.com like they do, it would work just similar to how they can send it to their own app. But no,
Right.
I don't think it would ever be possible.
Because most people like Jeff saying they use the Gmail, which is I
Yeah.
use. They use a notification. They're getting a notification through geocaching.com sending it to me. Now when a cache does publish, obviously, you can go look and you can see immediately on Cachly that there's unless somebody hasn't logged it yet online, but you can see your FTFs.
Yeah, that's a different show. We're not going to get into that.
No, but I mean that's something that I know a lot of people will just in general will look at a site and go, oh, there's a cache. Oh, I gotta go. There's a cache, Jesse. Show for me.
Well, one of the things that I know we're almost done here, but one of the things that I use very frequently that I think we've talked about on the show when it first came out years and years ago, but the fact that you can save unpublished caches offline. So you updated the saved location, and I do that constantly. When I'm out in the field and I find a new location for a cache or earth cache or whatever else, I'll save it as the cache type, put all my notes in there, do everything, and it saves on the map, and that's hugely convenient if you publish a good number of caches. Yeah. And it may not be one of the most popular features, but for the people that use it, it's extremely useful.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people appreciate that feature, yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those that's kind of buried too. Unless you use it, you wouldn't even notice it that often.
The problem is it gets mixed up with the save location feature that was previously before that. So there's that where you can save a location. It doesn't have a lot of features. You can't even see all of those on the map at the same time.
Right.
Or there's the save the offline geocache feature. So those are kind of competing. At some point, I want to kind of integrate that and get rid of the save locations and only have the offline geocaches. But I haven't had a chance to do that yet.
Yep.
No, I love it. I've got a bunch saved on my phone for future geocaches. So
hopefully someday there'll be an API where you can just upload those to the website as a new cache.
Oh, wow, yeah,
be cool. But I've never heard about that happening. So
that's pretty advanced.
Yeah. No, that's cool though. But and that's something that
I think that would happen. A lot of junk caches would happen if that was allowed. People would just be submitting them like crazy from their devices. If
maybe that's not such a good feature to do then.
Probably not.
I think that's really why they don't allow it.
Maybe. Yeah. Well, that's one thing too. Jesse mentioned people is like, oh well, I have to have I got to have one of these old museum pieces if I'm going to go out, in the middle of nowhere. And we look at Jesse always look at him and go, just offline your caches on your phone and go.
Yeah.
I mean, I did. I can't tell you how many counties in Texas there's no signal out there. There's nothing. I just offline what I needed and I moved on. I mean, it's just I'm always surprised in today's world why you would want a museum piece.
That's a nostalgia argument. Why do you have a record player at your house?
Yeah,
what I mean? It's because it's cool.
I mean, it's cool. It's cool to have a museum piece just so you have one, just so you can say, I've got a museum piece, but what's the point? I mean,
I hear the argument that the GPS signal is just so much better, but I don't know. I mean, sure, that's true, and maybe tree cover when you're down a valley or something like that, and your phone isn't getting a GPS fix as quickly as a unit would, a GPS unit, but I don't know why I think they're just stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
That's an offshoot into a whole nother show, but I found every single one of mine saved like maybe 3 with a phone. And the phones have gotten better. They were way worse in the beginning. So that's
because you're tapping in. I think the other thing too, we all know, but maybe some people don't. You don't have your own GP. I mean, you're not. You're tapping into the iPhone.
Yeah.
To get the GPS. I mean, there's no. I mean, and so if your phone can do things like that, which it can, then Cachly's along for the ride. I mean, that's something I don't think people. I assume people know that, but I guess we should mention that. I've not found. And again, some people are like, oh, the cache was 4 feet off or something like that. Really?
Yeah.
You're not really going to tell me that the cache was
GPS is
4 feet
only
off, are you?
accurate, I think, to 10 or 12 feet or something like that. So there's never going to be an issue with the 4 foot like you're talking about.
Yeah,
It's
that's
never going to be
just-
accurate in that.
Yeah, that's
distance.
silly.
Some
Yeah.
people will mention that, and that's not always us. Sometimes it's the cache owner who didn't like grab proper coordinates. That's all.
And some people, placing, I've heard them say they like using Cachly better for placing than a unit because they can look on satellite view and they can see
Yes.
just visually and use coordinates to make sure that their placement is perfectly correct.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I don't place mine with a GPS, and I've hidden hundreds of caches, so it's fine.
Yeah, I just take a picture of what I do. Is if I want coordinates, I mean, probably a better way to do it. But I just do a quick click. I put it where I want. I hold the phone where the cache is going to be.
Yeah.
I do a quick picture, and then later on, so that I can walk away. I've got it, and I can go back and I can see exactly what coordinates were because it's right there. So I don't know.
Yeah, and people ask about doing, where a GPS unit will, I can't remember what it's called, but it will take tons of readings, over a
Yeah,
long period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, averaging. But basically, the iPhone is doing that. It's continually grabbing better and better coordinates, and so if you sit there,
Yes.
you will get better coordinates. So far, I haven't created that feature because I don't think it's needed.
Right.
For maybe there's some situations and some terrains that it would be needed, but so far I think it's pretty accurate. If you let it settle down and you just wait in that location for a longer period of time, if you're hiding, it will be quite accurate.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
Rich says,
Well, there you go.
Ashley Wiki had a section added on how to take good coordinates recently.
Yes, and I think Rich added that. Yes.
Oh, perfect.
There you go.
Yeah.
Very appreciated.
Teresa says she leaves hers for 1 or 2 minutes, comes back later, it'll settle down.
Yep.
And we have proof that those are accurate because Teresa, we just found a bunch of Fishing Kitties caches this past weekend,
A ton of them.
and there wasn't a single problem. You did more on that trail than I did, Jesse. You did more than I did, and you didn't have any issues, did you? Out there
I
at the
think
lake?
you and I found 120 together.
No, I
so-
know, but I meant the Fishing Kitty
Wow.
one.
Oh no, you're talking about that one. Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
thinking
you went with the
letterboxes, but
Colorado
yeah,
group for part
Yeah,
of
we
the.
did all those. Those were all fine. They're right there where they're supposed to be. Perfect.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an example of,
And those
So,
were out in the middle
yeah.
of nowhere, right? Like, I mean, not nowhere, but it wasn't like a street. It was
Yeah.
out and away. So those are perfectly fine.
Yeah, we're off on a trail. Yeah. So Teresa, we didn't have any problem on finding your caches. So obviously she's using that, and so it's perfect. So, all right. I guess some final thoughts. We'll let Nick finish off because he's the guest. But I'll say something real fast, and then Jesse, I'll let you go, and then Nick will let you wrap up. But again, thank you so much, Nick. It's always a pleasure to
Thank
have
you.
you on, and you let us know whenever we can do anything for you. You've been a tremendous patron and sponsor and everything over the years. It's been a joy. Unfortunately, we've only been able to be face to face back in Denver. Hopefully,
Yeah.
one day we'll get to sit down again together face to face. But
Hopefully.
until then, again, we are so grateful for all that you do, and it is an incredible app. So we appreciate
Thank
it. And now the new apps, we're really excited. I mean, Wherigo's worked great, and we're looking forward to Waymark. Haven't been doing much of those lately, but I'm actually looking forward to doing a few when that does come out. So thank you again.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I want to say the same thing. Obviously, I mean, we don't have to tell you we use Cachly all the time, and Nick does not pay us to constantly say Cachly's the best. I promise you, he doesn't. We use it because we use it. Wherigo is awesome. I love it. I'm a huge Wherigo fan. And honestly, before we knew you had waymarking coming out, I had zero interest in waymarking. Did it 2 years ago. I'm not going to the website to try to figure out how to log something and everything else. And
Yeah.
did it for challenges. It was pretty much irrelevant to me. But now the fact that you're going to bring this out this summer and I can do it in the field, hey, that's just another fun thing I can do out there. And I will absolutely be digging back into that again. And found a bunch for a challenge, so I know I can do it. Now I just need to. But it was so inconvenient, to go to a website. It was like old school stuff. So if with an app in the field, I'll absolutely be doing that when when I'm out and about. So I look forward to it. I think it's going to be good.
Before last words there, Nick, somebody wants to know if they can buy a shirt.
Yes, you can go to Cachly.com, and there's a link up on the top right in the nav that says, I think it says shirts, maybe it says swag. But yeah, we have a couple shirts and mugs and stuff like that. So
nice.
Cool.
Feel free. So, but yeah, anybody else who wants to go to Cachly.com, there's links to our forums, there's links to download, also on social media, especially our, if you go to Facebook and search for Cachly, there's our user group. And that's very active if people have questions. And yeah, Waymarkly, I will continue to update on social media, as well as Waymarkly.com will be updated in the future with, release and things like that. So that is where you can find stuff.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Yep. We'll keep in touch. And here we go.
Folks, we hope you've enjoyed the show tonight. Please email us your comment at geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. The show can be found on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, or Spotify, as well as at the Geocache Talk website. Don't forget to click that subscribe button below and ring that bell notification so that you can see and hear the show on a weekly basis. And tell your friends about the show. Get them involved with us in the chat room. And until next week, don't just talk about geocaching, go geocaching.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.